What's up, everybody? Oh my goodness, the weekend's over. Wrapping up the weekend, getting ready to start a brand new week here Monday morning. Back to the grind, put both feet on the floor. Let's do it. This is Michael, by the way, in the wee hours of the night on the graveyard shift with your daily trivia question once again. And I hope everybody is going to have a good week. So off we go, folks. The answer to the previous trivia question was an oil pipeline. Were you able to figure it out? This is an interesting story. I can't imagine why there hasn't been a movie made of this kind of stuff. This was really cool to research. When oil was discovered in the rugged terrain of northwestern Pennsylvania back in the 1860s, everyone who rushed into that area to strike it rich, if you were, soon discovered that it was one thing to bring oil out of the ground, to discover it and bring it out of the ground, but it was an entirely different thing altogether to try and get it to market. Remember, this is up in the mountains of Pennsylvania. It's snowy. It's just really rough terrain. The only way to get it back to train stations and to the market was carefully navigating wagons pulled by horses, right? These oil was put into large 300-pound barrels that would be collected and loaded onto wagons and transported on roads that sometimes were nothing more than 2 feet of mud. It was a mess, absolute mess, trying to do this. It was a tough job. It was also monopolized by teamsters at the time, who had a stranglehold of sorts on the oil operation in this area of northwestern Pennsylvania. A lot of people don't realize that. Oil was going for $5 per barrel at the time, which was pretty darn good, and $3 of that went to the teamsters for transportation purposes to get the oil to train stations and other markets. Okay, so they basically kind of bullied their way into this operation. This equated to the cost of moving the oil being as much as or more than the oil itself when you bottom lined everything. So there was an issue there. There was a problem there. So enter in Mr. Samuel Van Sickle, who not only saw an opportunity to carve out a niche for himself, which I'm always talking about in my trivia questions. It fascinates me how these people come along. They're entrepreneur in nature. They have great minds that can figure things out, and they carve out a niche for themselves. That's exactly what Van Sickle did. But he also found a way to bypass the teamsters and their bully operation. He was there. He came to northwestern Pennsylvania up in the mountains like everybody else did. He was there to make a dollar. He wanted to strike it rich, right, like everyone else. But he had a great mechanical aptitude, and he also had vision. And when you take those two factors in somebody with a mind like his, and you have a problem like you did with the teamsters, you get things done. You figure it out. He would go on to construct, check this out, the nation's first commercial oil pipeline. Amazing. It was wrought iron, okay, which was different from the others that had come before. And it was 2 inches in diameter, which is really tiny by today's standard. But the key there is that it sealed and it didn't link, and it transformed how oil was transported. It was a great invention at the time. Steam pumps were actually used. I had a picture of it. I didn't include it on my collage there, but steam pumps were used to push the oil up over hills in this rugged terrain, and then gravity did the rest. Right? It was. I think it was more like it was something like 5 miles long, something to that effect. The teamsters, as you can imagine, they were not happy. They would go out at night, actually, and take axes to the lines or rip the lines out of the ground using horses altogether and so forth. They would basically try and sabotage his invention so they could get, their piece of the pie again. Not to be intimidated, Van Sickle would hire his own security team to protect the lines as he would go out and rebuild the sections. And he would go on to put over 500 teamsters out of work in less than 5 weeks. Good for him. Good for him with this invention. Most importantly, his pipeline changed the modern world as far as transporting oil was concerned. People knew that now you could do this. Now you could find oil in a place as obsolete as the rugged mountains of Pennsylvania. You could still get it to market. You could still get it to the train stations. You could still refine it. Okay, so a couple of cool geek factoids. It's just a cool story, right? That's just really cool history right there. So a couple of geek factoids. Within a few years, as you can imagine, hundreds of pipelines were crisscrossing throughout western Pennsylvania because there was a lot of oil up there. I learned that too in my research. Did not know that before. Did not remember that from my high school history class. But there was a lot of oil up there, and once Van Sickle did what he did, hundreds of pipelines were being built throughout western Pennsylvania. Van Sickle, this is kind of unfortunate, would actually go on to lose his pipeline and his whole operation there he lost it to the bank, to what has been recorded in history as quote unquote unwise bets. I couldn't get any more research or elaboration on that. I couldn't figure out what happened. But of course, I also, as you also know, what came thereafter was Rockefeller and his method of transporting oil and refining oil. And then he changed everything forever. So that's probably why Van Sickle doesn't get a whole lot of the lion's share of the spotlight. But it's still an interesting character and a very interesting and cool story to research. All right, folks, let's get the week started, whether we like it or not. We got to. Let's get into this Monday. Here we go. Brand new trivia question for October 10th. On this day, in 1967, an international treaty entered into force which forbade countries from deploying weapons of mass destruction or establishing military bases in this location, which the treaty said should be accessible to all countries to be freely and scientifically investigated. Good luck, folks. See if you can figure that out to start your week off. Have a marvelous Monday. Oh, I'm liking this music. Peace out, folks.